Planet Reddit. Today's story is...
I never met my sister's friend, but she accused me of getting her pregnant. The truth destroyed their university lives. In the last few days, I have found myself in a rather complicated situation. My sister's best friend at university, whom we will call Millie, a 20-year-old, has been spreading a false story about me, claiming that I, who am 27, got her pregnant. According to her, she is 6 weeks pregnant and she has been pressuring me to provide her with financial support, arguing that she does not have the financial stability necessary to support the alleged baby. I have flatly refused her demands, and for good reason. This is all completely untrue. The most surprising thing about this situation is that I have never had direct contact with Millie. My only knowledge of her comes through my sister, as they are roommates at university and are close friends. While it is true that I have heard about her and have seen her briefly during the video calls my sister makes when she is at home during the holidays, we have never had a private conversation or met in person. The idea that I could have gotten her pregnant is simply impossible, considering that we have never had any kind of personal interaction. The situation exploded 3 days ago when Millie posted a serious accusation against me on Instagram, accompanied by photographs of positive pregnancy tests. In her post, she named me as the father and accused me of refusing to assume my parental responsibilities. Just a few minutes after this post, my sister started bombarding me with calls and messages, expressing her fury. She threatened me, saying that if I didn't help Millie, she would inform our parents and make sure she destroyed my relationship with them. When I tried to explain to my sister that it was all a fabrication, I found that Millie had already constructed an elaborate story. According to her, I had contacted her through Instagram, had made several secret trips to meet her, and we had had intimate relations on multiple occasions. Supposedly, upon learning of the pregnancy and her decision to keep the baby, I had deleted all evidence of our communication and had removed her from my contacts to hide any trace of our alleged relationship. Despite the absurdity of these accusations, my sister has decided to completely believe Millie's version, ignoring the total lack of evidence. When I suggested a paternity test to clarify the situation, Millie flatly refused, claiming it would be an insult to his dignity. My sister's attitude became so hostile and her threats to involve our parents so persistent that I was forced to block her to avoid further confrontation. This morning, the situation took an unexpected turn when I received a message on Instagram from someone who identified himself as Daniel, Millie's ex-boyfriend. Initially, I was skeptical and reluctant to get involved in anything related to her, but Daniel backed up his identity by sending me several photographs showing him with Millie. He explained that he wanted to help me resolve this situation, and since my sister had given me an ultimatum until the end of the week before involving our parents, I decided to listen to him. The story Daniel shared with me revealed a disturbing pattern. He explained that Millie was trying the same strategy on me that she had used on him. They had ended their 6-year relationship a few weeks earlier, after he discovered that she had been unfaithful to him with someone he met on a dating app. Later, when Millie discovered she was pregnant, she tried to pressure Daniel into marrying her, claiming that the baby was his and that he needed to assume his role as a family man. However, thanks to some friends informing him about Millie's activity on dating apps, Daniel was able to connect the dots and end the relationship. According to Daniel, there is uncertainty about the baby's true paternity, as it could be his or the man on the dating app, who had already left the city because he was a tourist. Running out of options, Millie had apparently chosen me as her next target, probably because of my financial and professional stability, as well as my connection to her best friend. Daniel revealed to me that Millie had previously expressed that she found me attractive and had spoken about me on several occasions during their relationship. Armed with this information and deeply outraged by the situation, I asked Daniel for Millie's parents' contact details. This afternoon, I contacted them and gave them a detailed account of the whole situation. Knowing from Daniel and my sister that Millie's parents were conservative and that they had only allowed her to study out of state because of Daniel's presence, I understood that the news would impact them significantly. I explained everything to them, the infidelity towards Daniel, the breakup of their relationship and the false accusations towards me. After a few hours without news, my sister started sending me messages from an alternative account, accusing me of ruining Millie's life. Millie's parents had given her an ultimatum: either she returned home immediately and dropped out of university, or she would lose all financial and family support. Personally, I consider the consequences to be fair. Unlike Daniel, who still has an emotional bond with Millie, I have no connection with her and acted according to what I consider to be right. My sister accuses me of misogyny and of having ruined someone's life, suggesting that I should have handled the situation more diplomatically. However, I consider her accusations to be unfounded. Am I the bad guy for having exposed the truth? Update 1. A week has passed since my original publication, and I want to thank you all for your comments. I recently made the decision to inform my parents about this whole situation. Although I have kept my sister blocked since she started believing Millie's lies, I am aware that she could eventually contact our parents to involve them. Since my parents are quite traditional, I had initially preferred to keep them out of this controversy to avoid causing them unnecessary upset. However, the situation has become unmanageable, especially since my sister continues to defend Millie even after the truth was revealed. I find her behavior incomprehensible, particularly the fact that she has created alternative accounts just to accuse me of ruining Millie's life. It is the same kind of bullying that Millie tried to exert on me. When I spoke to my parents, they were deeply shocked, both by the situation itself and by my sister's behavior. It was particularly difficult for them to process given that we had always been a very close family. Despite our age difference, my sister and I had a very close relationship, which makes this situation even more painful. I cannot understand what influence Millie has had on her to provoke this radical change, to the point that she is willing to defend the indefensible and confront her own family. In response, my parents have decided to intervene in the situation. They have determined that my sister's behavior is unacceptable and have issued her with an ultimatum similar to the one Millie received. She must apologize to me and cut all ties with Millie, or they will be forced to withdraw financial support for her university studies, leaving her in the position of having to pay for her education herself. Although it saddens me to see that my sister will also face severe consequences, I consider it necessary. The apology is important, not so much for its sincerity, but as a symbolic gesture that recognizes the seriousness of her actions. My parents' demand that I cut ties with Millie also seems reasonable to me, considering the negative influence she has shown to have on her. I am particularly concerned that if Millie has been able to convince my sister to support an attempt to trick someone into a pregnancy, she could eventually lead her to endorse even more serious actions, such as paternity fraud. Regarding the questions in the comments about why Millie is so determined to get engaged instead of considering other options for her pregnancy, I believe that her main motivation is to escape her parents' control. She seems convinced that marriage would provide her with both independence from her parents and access to her partner's financial resources, in this case, my income. Although I can understand that the situation with her parents must be extremely difficult to push her to such extremes, her actions are completely unacceptable. While we all face difficulties in life, most people do not resort to such destructive tactics to solve them. I cannot respect someone who chooses to manipulate and harm others in this way, no matter how complicated their personal situation may be. The consequences she is facing, as is my sister, are a direct result of her own actions. Update 2. A couple of days ago, after informing my parents about the whole situation with my sister and Millie, I went to their house this morning because they had scheduled a call with my sister. Although I initially had no intention of participating in the conversation, I decided to be present. My last contact with her had been when she sent me messages from an alternative account to reproach me for the consequences Millie would face with her parents due to my actions. Instead of apologizing when she learned the truth, she had portrayed me as the villain for informing Millie's parents about her plans. After that incident, I also blocked that additional account and there were no further attempts to contact me on her part. Despite her evident lack of remorse, I decided to go to my parents' house to witness their reaction to the situation. I remained silent when my parents initiated the call. At first, my sister seemed calm and normal, as if nothing was wrong. However, when my parents broached the subject, explaining that I had informed them of everything and that they expected an explanation for his behavior, as well as an apology to me, her attitude changed dramatically. After a few moments of silence, he expressed his disbelief that I had involved our parents and called me an immature idiot, not knowing that I was present. When my parents were about to reveal my presence, I signaled them not to mention it, wanting to hear their sincere words. He continued to defend Millie, arguing that while she might have lied, she had done so out of desperation. She explained that Millie knew that her parents would force her to leave university if they discovered that she was pregnant out of wedlock. She mentioned how difficult it had been to get their permission to study out of state, something they had only allowed because of Daniel's presence. Now, pregnant and unsure of the identity of the father, Millie was afraid to even take a paternity test. Terminating the pregnancy was not a viable option either due to her financial dependence on her parents, as asking for money for it would raise questions she was afraid to face. My sister even criticized Daniel for abandoning her in this situation. From her tone, it was clear that my sister saw Millie as the victim and Daniel as the villain, which was absurd considering that he ended the relationship because of Millie's infidelity. If she had been faithful to him, he probably would have agreed to marry her, as the baby could only have been his. However, she cheated on him, possibly on multiple occasions, destroying all trust. Any reasonable person would understand this, but my sister was convinced that Millie was the real victim. My parents, knowing the whole story, including Millie's infidelity, tried to reason with my sister. They explained that there was no justification for considering Millie a victim and that, even in a desperate situation, there were better alternatives than trying to ruin my reputation and forcing a marriage. They pointed out that the plan was not only reckless and far-fetched, but that it had also damaged the reputation of everyone involved, including Millie herself, who was branded as unfaithful in everyone's eyes. Although my parents maintained a calm and rational tone, my sister reacted with hostility as soon as she realized that they did not sympathize with her version of events. She began to shout, accusing them of favoritism towards me and calling me their golden child, completely unfounded allegations. He refused to accept that Millie's actions had been wrong and that there were better ways to seek financial help than resorting to false accusations simply because she wanted to escape parental control. Faced with his refusal to listen to reason, my parents lost patience and gave him an ultimatum. He had to apologize to me and cut ties with Millie, or they would withdraw their financial support for her studies. My sister immediately started shouting even louder, accusing me of having suggested this measure and of trying to ruin her life. It was then that I decided to reveal my presence, making it clear that the decision had been exclusively that of our parents and that all this could have been avoided if she had simply acknowledged her mistake. However, it was clear that her loyalty to Millie overrode any family ties, even at the expense of her own education. On discovering my presence, she began to insult me, which made me angry. I replied that, since she valued her friendship with Millie so much, now they could both be university dropouts together, as they clearly deserved each other. Before I could continue, my parents ended the call and blocked her number, too upset to continue talking. It was unbelievable that, even after knowing the whole truth and hearing logical arguments against Millie, my sister maintained her unconditional support. Although I had previously doubted my decision to inform Millie's parents, I am now convinced that it was the right thing to do. Regardless of how controlling they may be, Millie deserves that kind of supervision given her unethical behavior. What really baffles me is the transformation of my sister. She used to be a sensible person, but Millie's influence has changed her drastically. It's a discouraging situation, but for now there's not much else we can do. My parents and I have accepted the reality, although I remain hopeful that she will eventually come to her senses, otherwise she will be compromising her own future. I'm not worried about Millie's fate, but it saddens me to see my sister following the same destructive path. It's especially frustrating because she had the perfect opportunity to apologize and make things right, but she chose to make everything worse. The unfounded accusations she made against our parents only made the situation worse, to the point that they are now considering withdrawing their financial support completely, even if she decided to apologize later on. This means she will have to resort to student loans or start working if she wants to continue her studies. The situation is particularly tragic because she has always been a brilliant student, and she is sacrificing her full potential for a toxic friendship. It is truly unfortunate to see how she is ruining her future in this way. Update 3. It has been 2 weeks since my last update, during which there has been no contact between my family and my sister. Despite the fact that my parents unblocked her after that phone call, she made no attempt to communicate, which led to her being blocked again after several days of silence. However, 2 days ago, she unexpectedly showed up at my parents' house over the weekend to talk to them. My parents maintained their firm stance, telling her that they would not talk to her unless she apologized to me first. They even offered to call me so that I could do it in person, but she flatly refused, insisting that I had ruined Millie's life. She blamed me for the fact that Millie was forced to leave university days after my call to her parents and had to return to them. Since then, my sister has lost all contact with Millie and does not know her current situation or whether she will be able to resume her studies. In tears, my sister accused me of being a misogynist concerned only with myself. She argued that, even after discovering Millie's lies, I should have tried to understand her motives instead of acting out of revenge by contacting her parents, knowing that this could ruin her life. I don't understand how this situation has suddenly become a feminist issue. I recognize that Millie's excessive parental control is problematic and that women should not face such restrictions. I consider myself a feminist, but in this specific case, feminism has no bearing on the fact that she deliberately tried to damage my life. Besides, why should I try to understand the motives of someone I have never met personally and who decided to spread lies about me? We had no previous friendship, so if she showed no consideration for my well-being, why should I care about hers? It's an absurd argument. My parents stood firm, showing no sympathy either to my sister or to Millie. As she cried in the doorway, they reiterated that she could cry all she wanted, but that she would only be allowed into the house after apologizing to me and making things right. or she would have to return to college and make do on her own. In response, my sister had an angry outburst on the porch, shouting accusations at our parents about favoritism, heartlessness and alleged attempts to bring her down. My parents responded by closing the door on her as soon as she started shouting. When she started banging on the door, they threatened to call the police if she didn't leave within a minute. Although she continued to insult them, she finally left, probably out of fear of police intervention. That night, my parents called me to tell me what had happened, and I approved of their handling of the situation. However, the next morning, my sister returned with a more repentant attitude, although only towards our parents. She still refused to apologize to me, expressing her willingness to do anything to reconcile with them, except offer me an apology, as she considered that I did not deserve it after what I had done to Millie. On this occasion, my parents told her that they were no longer interested in her apologizing to me, as they had made the decision to cut ties with her because of the trauma she had caused. They told her that she was clearly not the person they thought they knew, and that this person, Millie, obviously meant more to her than anything else, even her own education. They reaffirmed my previous comment that now they could both be college dropouts together. When my sister started crying again outside her door, my parents stood their ground, telling her that she would have to fend for herself, as they were no longer interested in maintaining communication or helping her. After this, she left. We currently do not know what her situation is, although I hope she is safe. It is the only thing I can do for now, as she has destroyed her family relationships herself. The responsibility is entirely hers, as she should have foreseen these consequences. Although I am saddened by the outcome of this situation, I believe my parents acted correctly. My sister is too lost and, unless she comes to recognize for herself that she was the cause of all this, it is no longer possible to maintain a dialogue with her. Update 4. It's been 3 weeks since my last update, and today we finally heard from my sister. She sent us all an email to let us know that she had returned to university thanks to the support of some older friends who had already graduated and found employment, and who helped her to obtain and co-finance a student loan. She also mentioned that she would start working and took the opportunity to express that she felt we had all failed her. It included an apology to me, although qualified by the statement that, while she might not have been entirely correct, my actions were still terrible for ruining someone's life, as Millie would not be returning in the near future. However, this apology is worthless at this point. It was evident through her email that her main intention was to make us feel guilty about her situation, now that she had found a way to continue on her own. Her attempt was unsuccessful. Neither my parents nor I felt particularly affected by her current situation, as it was a direct result of her own decisions and actions. Although it is unfortunate how this whole situation has developed, the only thing we can do is move on. The relationship between my parents and me has grown stronger, and in fact we meet more frequently than before. In some ways, this experience has brought us closer together. While I wasn't the favorite child before, I certainly think I am now. I don't know how long my sister will remain estranged, but for the moment, I consider this the only possible solution.